That'll be fun. Well, good morning. Welcome to our Faith Focus as we have Art with us. I think you know Art, but Art is our Director of Traditional Worship here at Bluff Park United Methodist Church. He helps to plan and organize all aspects of worship in the sanctuary on Sunday mornings. And he serves as our choir director and director of music ministries here. And if you don't know this, he plays the organ pretty well. And so he's going to be sharing with us a little bit about the history of our organ here at Bluff Park, a little bit about the role of music in worship and the role of our choir in worship. It is a very ancient practice and something that has been handed down from generation to generation that we are very blessed with at Bluff Park of having such an outstanding program. And then we'll actually be demonstrating the organ and playing some excerpts for us. I understand one of those excerpts will be coming from Jesus Christ Superstar. And I have never heard that on a pipe organ, so I know you are excited with me as we do that. But thank you so much for taking time to share with us this morning. I would invite you to lift your hearts. Let's have a word of prayer, and then we will jump into our celebration today. Let us pray. Almighty God, we just thank you for this time and for your gift of music that gives us the ability to express something that's sometimes hard to put into words, but God, with your gift of music, we're able to share, to be able to lift our voices and our hearts with the host of heaven in praising your name. And for those moments when that veil that separates heaven and earth grows very thin. We thank you, dear God, for the gift of music here at Bluff Park, for the members of our choir who are dedicated and who show up every week to provide such wonderful aspects in worship, for our handbells that's beginning to come back, for our children's choir, and God, for Art, who leads not only in gifts of music, but with a pastor's heart. So God, help us to learn, help us to grow, and help us to understand that the music that we celebrate with in our worship services are not for our entertainment, but God, to bring honor and glory to you. And that every time we lift our hearts together with song, we are joining with your very angels, praising your name. For it's in the name of Jesus Christ we gather, and in his name that we pray.
Thank you, Kevin. Let me just say, it is, and I'll say this even with him in the room, but it is truly an honor to serve with Kevin and with Ross, with Stanley, but as we plan each week worship together and long-range plans out, so it's an ongoing process that changes sometimes at the last minute. But one that I very much enjoy being a part of here at Bluff Park. Thank you for being here this morning, and let me say this first, that most of you that have been here, maybe when the organ was put in, know much more about the instrument itself than I do. What I have been able to find, I have done with research, there's a lot of information about this organ online that's been put online with the American Organ Historical Society, and I don't know if that a lot of it has to do with the fact that McCoy was a historic church here in Birmingham that closed, and so that information is online. There is a pipe organ database that Historical Society provides that gives a listing of pipe organs across the United States, and this instrument is one of them. The update is, it says online that the organ was built for McCoy and that it was purchased by Bluff Park. Doesn't tell you the date it was purchased. Hopefully I have found that information out for you, but it's been real interesting as I have pieced together and found information about the instrument. That's been very, very interesting. Like I said, Bill, were you committee chair when the organ was purchased? No? Okay. But you were on the committee. Okay, all right. I saw that your name in some notes that I had looked at, and some other folks that are here that was involved in that instrument and that purchase. Well, let me just I'm going to give you just what I know, and then you may be able to add to that, which would be super. Information that I have acquired and that I have been able to find, a little bit of history about the organ, the pipe organ itself, from its origins and its use in worship, and as well as the music ministry here and the choir and their function as we lead in worship each week. And then I'm going to play a little bit for you just to demonstrate the different colors of the instrument, the different divisions of the instrument that it's made of. So hopefully it'll be informative, and I hope that you can go away and have learned something today. First of all, the organ to me is the king of the instruments. That's just a terminology that a lot of folks use, one that I use. And from an early age, when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, I always wanted to play organ. I wanted to learn. So I started taking piano lessons when I was 5. And my dad would not buy me a piano. He was pretty frugal. And so I had literally a toy. It was this long and set about this high. And it was a toy piano. And that's what I had to study on for 2 years, literally. And it was, and I got discouraged and I quit. And I thought, don't want to do this. So I quit taking, and then when I was in the 6th grade, I decided I wanted to play again, and he decided to buy me a real instrument. So I was able to start taking lessons and wanted to learn to play organ, and happened to was involved in church, and my teacher was our pastor's wife, and he had been called to another church and left. I was in the 8th grade when that happened, and so she said, you're going to have to learn to play the organ. So she started trying to help me, and at that time, it wasn't a pipe organ, it was a Hammond organ. So if any of you are familiar with the Hammond, the vibrato, the thing that a lot of rock bands use today, they're worth a lot of money to them. But that was our church instrument, and it had an octave of pedals, actually 7, it wasn't even a full octave. So I started playing that, and really, really enjoyed playing and sort of taught myself. And then the church bought a Rogers electronic instrument my senior year of high school. I went to college that fall, and I was a voice major. I still wanted to play organ, so I started studying at Murray State University when I was a freshman in college, and I ended up being an organ minor, so I am not a major. I play around with it. I am not an expert by any means, but I do enjoy playing, and used to play all the time, every week. But that doesn't happen much anymore. But just a little bit about where I come from as far as what I have done musically with the instrument. The origins of the pipe organ can be traced all the way back to the 3rd century BC, believe it or not. It goes back to ancient Greece. And originally, I'm not a mechanic, so I don't understand how this works. Some of you will. The organ was simply the wind supply was done by the weight of displaced water. So it's in an airtight container. And so that's what created the sound. That over course of time did change. By the early 10th century, the organ needed around 70 men to actually provide the air that was blown to the instrument. And it took 2 men to play it. Notice I said men, because at that point in history, women were not, they were seen and not heard. You know that, okay? Just how it was. So that was sort of the beginning of our present day instrument, what we call modern instrument, which really has changed very little except for the electronic makeup of it since the 17th century. The 17th century, most of the sounds that are available on our modern organ, our modern pipe organ, were developed early in time. And it has become more complex as the device has changed and grown. It was considered the most complex man-made device. It remained to be the most complex man-made device until the late 19th century. And what replaced it was the telephone exchange. When that was developed, that was more complex than the organ. But up until that time in history, the pipe organ was the most complex man-made instrument or device that was known to man. Our organ here at Bluff Park was purchased, as you all know, from McCoy United Methodist Church. It was built by Austin Pipe Organ Company in Hartford, Connecticut, and it was built in 1963. So the instrument is almost 60 years old, which is remarkable. But when you stop and think about it, there are instruments in Europe that are several hundred years old that are still played. They still operate. So there does have to be things done to them to update them and change them, but we're very fortunate to have this instrument. It was first played at McCoy on May the 12th in 1963. It is a 44-rank organ. Our organ has 2,691 pipes make up this instrument. It has 5 divisions. The pedal division, which is the feet, and the feet, the organ is played with both feet, not just one foot, and that keyboard is made up exactly the way the keyboard is made up on the piano or on the organ. Lowest note being C, going up to A. And so that is, when you have to play organ, you have to read 3 staves of music, rather than if you're a pianist and you're reading 2, the organ is always 3. You've got your treble and bass clef, and then you've got your bass clef, which is your pedal. So that all has to be read at the same time, which is something you learn to do. So like reading, when I say open score, if you're a pianist, you may be reading open score for a choral rehearsal, which is soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and they're all separate lines. They're all for doing different things. But as an accompanist, you have to dig out and you have to play all of that and sort of put it together. And that's sort of a gift. Some folks can do, some folks don't do as well, but it's something that you have to do as an organist, is read all 3 of those. So the pedal division, then you have the, on our organ, we have the pedal division, we have the antiphonal division, and the antiphonal organ is located right behind me in that screen. And everyone knows that, right? Is anybody didn't realize that we had an antiphonal organ or even know what an antiphonal organ is? Okay, good. The antiphonal organ is located in the rear of the church. And so where you see that screen that looks like this screen, there are pipes there, all right? There are about 1,000 pipes actually located there. And we're very fortunate to have an antiphonal division. Most churches don't have an antiphonal organ. Most of them simply have the organ in the front of the facade of the chancel. But we do have an antiphonal instrument. The unique thing about our antiphonal organ is it also came out of McCoy, but it basically is a Skinner organ. McCoy, before they built their Austin in 1929, E.M. Skinner from the Skinner Organ Company, who was a very, very fine organ builder at the time, built a custom organ for McCoy. And they received that in 1920. That was a 2-manual instrument, 9 ranks. And so when this organ was purchased from McCoy, the antiphonal organ came with it because they had taken that organ and made it an antiphonal organ to the Austin. They added some pipes to it and increased the size. It was 7 ranks to 9 ranks. So there is a separate division that we have for that organ. It shares the same manual as the choir organ. And the choir there are 3 keyboards. The choir is the bottom of the keyboards on this particular instrument. Different organs have different names for the way they are, with the exception of the swell and the grate. But when you get into a bottom, it depends on the pipe organ maker as to the name of that. Ours is a choir, some are a Brustifer. It just depends on the maker of the organ, but it does have 3. So we have a choir division that shares the keyboard with antiphonal. Separate pipes, separate make, but the choir division comes from this direction of our organ, and then the grate division is unenclosed. And what I mean by that is it is the middle keyboard. It is what we call the main keyboard that we usually play off of. And it is unenclosed, meaning that it cannot be softened or dampened in any way. The choir division and the swell division can be dampered with the expression pedal. Each of those have a pedal. We have 3 expression pedals on this organ. We have the antiphonal, which the shades can be shut, so they're like louver blinds. And sometime if Jay's playing on Sunday morning, and you may see behind that screen those shades close, if you're ever watching and you hear the organ get softer, you'll see the shades actually close, and they're just like louver blinds. And so they close, and then they dampen the sound of the instrument. So that is how you actually end up playing softer on a pipe organ. Because once the stop is pulled and the pipe is played there, if you're using an 8-foot flute, for example, on the grate, you cannot soften it. It is that volume. But when you couple, and when I say couple, when you move divisions, when you move the swell division, you can, on this instrument, you can couple an 8-foot flute down to the grate keyboard, or the grate division, so that those 8-foot swell pipes play at the same time an 8-foot flute on the grate would play. You can reduce that sound by closing the swell box or the choir box. So that's just another option that the organ has, and you may have seen something happen there. A lot of organs, those boxes are completely exposed, and you actually see the shades close and open. Here, it's not that way because our pipes are not pretty. Okay, our pipes are not pretty. That's the reason you don't see them. A lot of organs are completely behind screen. Randall Dyer, who moved this organ, really wanted to expose the grate organ, meaning that the grate pipes would be on both sides of the windows in a box. But that's not happened because that would require having to redo a lot of pipes. Anyway, so we are 5 divisions: the pedal, the choir, the antiphonal, the choir, the grate, and the swell. Those make up the actual instrument itself. When the organ was purchased by Bluff Park, and McCoy, I believe, closed in 1993, I think. Let me see. I've left my notes. When that church closed, the 93 is what I'm thinking. Okay, thank you, Miss Elizabeth. So when that church closed and Bluff Park purchased the instrument, do any of you know? I know you do, but if you remember how little you paid for the instrument. And I say that because it was very little. You paid for a 44 rank instrument only $15,000, okay? Which is unreal, okay? That's a gift. So to be able to purchase that instrument. Now, according to the notes that Bill shared with me and some information that I found, I think Bluff Park, you spent about $100,000 in addition to that $15,000. When the organ was moved, there had to be some wind chest had to be replaced. The wind chest is the box that the actual pipes sit in. There's a hole and a pipe goes down into that box. And that box is fed with air from a blower. Modern day instrument has an electric motor blower. We have our blower is, anybody know where it's located? It is in the nursery. It's downstairs in the nursery in a room that is simply devoted to it. It wasn't when I first got here. There was stuff in there, and I convinced Jason it didn't need to be. That it all had to go. So they got everything moved out of there. And so there is a blower in that room that's kept locked. It would be very dangerous for somebody to get in there if it were on and that turbo were sort of going. So it is kept locked. But so that feeds air through a pipe up to the different boxes that all the pipes are located, that they sit in. And not until a stop is pulled, air is then fed to that particular pipe. And not until the key is pressed is the air released to go through the pipe. And so that is what causes the sound, is air actually traveling into the pipe. So in order to have all the different pitches that the organ can play, even in one note, you have to have a series of pipes for that one note. So that's why there are several thousand pipes, because they will range in size from, on this instrument, we have a 32-foot pedal stop, And we don't have a 32-foot pedal. We have a 16-foot pedal that is enclosed in wood, which causes it to sound down the octave. So it will sound down, and it will sound a 32-foot pipe. Mormon Tabernacle, if you've ever been there, that organ has 64-foot pipes that are visible to the instrument that is played. But we do have 16-foot. We do have we have two 32-foot stops, and those are the lowest notes that you will hear. Those are the notes that you might hear at times that you sort of feel your bench, the pew maybe vibrate a little bit, and that can cause that. Most organists like loud and louder. I'll just be honest with you, they just do. Most congregants don't, probably prefer that. And so as an organist, you have to find that fine line, how loud and when to play that particular volume level. So, but as an organist, I will tell you that you find something that's full organ and you're all about it. You know, it's a great sound to have. So this instrument, Randall Dyer, who is located in Tennessee, it's really interesting that Randall and I had, before I came to Bluff Park, and of course I've been here, it'll be 4 years the first Sunday of December that I have been here at Bluff Park, and Randall and I knew each other from Paducah, Kentucky, where I moved from. He had just finished 2 years before my removal here. We had just contacted with him, and he built a brand new console for us, and we put in a festival trumpet on the organ in Paducah, and did some renovation on some pipes, some reed pipes. But so I knew Randall, which has been real interesting, and to continue to be able to work with him here. But he was hired by this church to move and store this instrument, when McCoy closed. He and his company stored the instrument and kept it there until it was time to install it here. And I believe that the organ was put in here in 1999, is what I can find. That's the best of my recollection. Is that right? Okay. And I didn't know that was a big part of it. Good. Well, he did it and did it well. The acoustics are wonderful in this building. They really, really are. So, but Randall was able to do that, and then I know that he did make the upgrades to the instrument, some upgrades. The reason this organ, the size of our instrument, the console, like I said, is 60 years old. It could be much, much smaller than it is because it was designed with all the mechanisms and mechanics that it had to have inside of it to work. When solid state technology came along and pistons could be put electronically in place with solid state, Randall did upgrade this to a solid state component that was put in this instrument. So really, if you were to open the instrument up, you would see that there's a lot of wasted space in the instrument that's not needed now, and it could be much smaller. There is wear and tear on the console itself that we have experienced. The pedal board, I'll be honest with you, is not in great shape. It's needing attention, and we've had springs replaced on the pedals, on the pedal board to play. But the pedal board, in my opinion, and Randall agrees with me, and Jay does as well, is not an AGO, American Guild of Organists, specs. They have specific specifications on the way organs are built, and Austin was a pioneer in that. They used Austin organs, AGO did, for a number of years when they started coming out with those specs. But this pedal board is a little bit strange. It's very difficult to play because of the spacing of the pedals. It's not AGO standard design. And so they're closer together. So it's really, you have to be very careful that you don't hit two notes at one time with it because of the way it's designed. And like I said, it's got a lot of wear and tear on it. But other than that, the actual organ itself is in great shape, the instrument itself. The console is not, but the actual organ, when I say organ, I mean the mechanics of the organ, the actual instrument itself, is in really, really, really good shape. But the console is going to need some things addressed. You may or may not know, but we spent quite a bit of money this summer doing some upgrades on our instrument. They came in the 1st of June, and if you were attending worship, if you may have recalled that Jay was not able to use the entire instrument. The pedals were completely, all the 16-foot stops were gone. Those pedals were gone, so he had to take 16-foot stops from the grate or the swell, couple those down to the pedal so that he had some foundation to play with. But he didn't have a whole lot of instruments, so he didn't have a lot of choices for a couple of months this summer as to how he played and what he played. But they were able to come in and remove those 16-foot pedal pipes. They needed to be re-leathered. There's leather that cover those pipes, so when they open and close over time, that wears and tears. And humidity is a huge factor in a pipe organ. That's why it's so important that the sanctuary try to stay as close to the same temperature, which can become an issue financially as well during hot months and cold months. But the organ needs to stay at a pretty constant temperature. I came in this morning and turned it on, and there was a siphert, which means there was a leak of air coming through one of the boxes on a pipe. And a lot of times if you hear Jay play, it happens on occasion, and you hear, ee, that's still going, that's a siphert. I had one this morning, and I've messed around with it, and I'm hoping it's gone, we'll see. Humidity level affects tuning of the instrument because the pipes, it's a living, breathing instrument. And so it truly is. And so weather changes affect the way the instrument sounds. It affects the tuning of the instrument. And so it all has to play. Humidity is a huge, huge factor in the tuning of the instrument. We do have the instrument tuned at least twice a year. It runs around $1,200 every time it's tuned, sometimes $1,500, depending on how much has to be done. And as I said, this summer, they removed the 16-foot pipes, and then they removed the 2 of the 8-foot pipes. Divisions of the antiphonal organ was in pretty bad shape. And so he removed all of those and was able to do some work on those pipes and brought it back. And if you were here the first Sunday the whole organ came back and Jay played, it was so obvious the difference that was made in the instrument. It really is, in my opinion, after that work was done this summer, it's playing better than it's played since I've been here. It's a fabulous, fabulous addition and a help to what was done for the instrument. We spent $15,000 this summer on those particular upgrades and repairs that were made to the part of the pedal division of the pipes and then the antiphonal division of that 8-foot pipe, the flute that we had on the organ. Well worth it. So that was done this summer. Like I said, the console was digitally upgraded when it was installed with solid-state technology. There are 16 general pistons. Pistons on the organ are, if you look at the keyboard, there's little pistons, and we have 16 of them, what we call general pistons. You can set a piston so that you're not all the time having to pull out stops as you play. So if you preset the organ to what you want to use, all you got to do is change a piston, and it will automatically pull out stops for you. So you're not having to manually pull those stops out. It will actually do it for you. If you look at the pedal board, you're going to see what we call toad studs, and those correspond to the general pistons on the organ. So if you're playing with both hands and you can't get a hand loose because of the literature you're playing, you can take your toe and you can actually hit the toad stud and it will pull out the organ for you. So there are tons of moving parts that an organist has to be able to navigate while they sit at that keyboard. So there's also on this organ, there's a full organ, or what we call antiphonal full organ piston. And if you put that piston on, it is going to play everything the organ's got, okay? It's wide open. That's everything it's got. So we do use that on occasion. In fact, if you're going to be at the service tonight, you're going to hear the organ at its, well, you'll hear it today too, but you'll hear it tonight at its fullest with the choir singing as we use that. The organ, as I said, does have 44 ranks, which is a pretty large organ. It fits this room very, very well. A rank of pipes is a complete set of 32 pipes for the pedal and 61 pipes for the console. So that's what makes up a rank. Organs are priced usually by how many ranks of pipes you have, because that determines the cost because of the number of pipes that you're going to have. Not so much the console, but the actual pipes that you're actually dealing with. Tons of different colors and timbres are available on the organ. You have the flute stops, and then we have what we call mixture stops, and then we have reed stops. The trumpet is a reed, an oboe is a reed. This organ doesn't have a clarinet on it, but you can sort of get that sound by using a nazard and a flute pulled together. So as an organist, that's another thing you have to learn is registrations. There's some no-nos as an organist that you do as far as what you use together that works. Bach, in the 1600s, in his writing, very much used 8-foot, 4-foot, 2-foot principals in flutes with added mixtures. When you get into the Romantic period, and you get into what we use of the organ with strings. Our organ has some lovely strings on it. In fact, Skinner organs were known for their lush strings. And there are about 4 string stops in our antiphonal organ that were original Skinner string pipes. And they're really nice. I'm going to show them to you today. I'm going to be honest with you, because of where the antiphonal is located. By this time of the year, it gets sort of nasty, out of tune, because of that is not controlled where that's located as far as heat as well, and temperature. But there's some really lovely strings, but they were very much used in the Romantic period, not in the Baroque period of music with Bach. But Romantic period comes along and strings were used on the organ and added. The pipes are usually situated, and they graduate from the smallest pipe, which can be, maybe an inch this tall, as I said, all the way up, pencil size, about the size of a pencil, then all the way up to a 64-foot. On us, it's a 16-foot that sounds 32-foot pipe. Let me check one thing. The pipes are constructed out of metal, tin, so it's soft metal, and some of them are wood. Some of the pipes are actually constructed out of wood. If you were to look in our chamber, which you can actually walk into the organ chamber, okay, and see the pipes. Those 2 doors lead into the organ chamber. You'll see square wooden pipes, especially in the pedal division, and then you're going to see tiny, smaller metal pipes, tin pipes, that are there as well. But it is a wonderful instrument. We are so fortunate to have it. Just a little bit about the action of the instrument. When we went to the electric action of the instrument, it does make playing an organ much easier. Tracker organs, there are a few in existence. Are instruments that are very difficult to play, because on a tracker organ, the more that you pull out of the organ, the more stops you add, the more difficult it is and harder it is to depress the keys. And that's because you're physically having to open up that airway for that pipe, for the air to go to the pipe. It's not controlled electronically. And the organ at St. Martin in the Fields in London is a tracker. I was fortunate to get to play that when I was in London at one point. And the more you pull out, it becomes a chore to be able to play it. But the action on a tracker organ is really interesting too, because it feels completely different than it does on an electronic instrument. But anyway, that's just another little side note. So you have any questions about the instrument? And I'm going to do a little demonstration for you. Thank you. I meant to say that, Paulette. To replace this instrument, to sell it and to replace it's two different things. Because to sell it, I honestly don't know. It would be who'd be willing to pay, basically, sort of like anything else. But if we had to replace this instrument, it would cost us in today's dollar right at $1 million. Okay. This instrument, $1 million. That, you know, this instrument, if it were to be replaced, would be right at $1 million to replace it, which is, so you see, it was what an investment Bluff Park made in the $15,000 to purchase it, and then the $100,000 to upgrade it. $115,000 is nothing, you know, to compare to what it would cost to replace it. Did you have something?
I was going to say, do we have insurance?
We do. We do have insurance that, and I've made Jason, we've talked about that when I first came to make sure that that was covered. So yes, it is. It is. And of course, you have all sorts of things that can happen. Lightning, you know, can hit things and mess them up, but it is covered. So.
Are there any other comparable type instruments like this in Birmingham?
Oh yes, yes there are. There are some that are even larger. Yes, there are. There are. You know, Vestavia, and I don't know how old the instrument is, but Vestavia, and I don't know anything about it. Methodist recently installed, I say recently, probably within the last 5 or 6 years, you may know, an Austin instrument. Randall Dyer has several instruments around. I think St. Mark's Methodist is one of Randall's instruments. I like Randall as a builder. I love his instruments. He built a brand new instrument at Tuscaloosa First Methodist. Several years ago, they gutted that instrument, and Randall went in and completely rebuilt it, and it is a fabulous, fabulous instrument. It really, really is. It's a better instrument than our instrument, and our instrument's great, but that instrument is really, really a nice instrument. I was fortunate enough to play a wedding there this summer, but it's a wonderful, wonderful instrument there too. But there are some very large instruments. I don't know what the organ is at Briarwood, but I think it's about an 88, maybe a 90 rank pipe, and I don't know what brand it is here in Birmingham, but it's a very, very large instrument. I know that you also in the past, and I know Bill may have been in charge of all of those, but I think you've done about 13 or 14 recitals that started maybe in 2003, I think, Bill, is what I saw. Yep, and the last one was done in 2017. And I know you use those sort of to help maintain the instrument. And those were sort of fundraisers to help maintain the instrument. The reason we were able to do the $15,000 work we did this summer was because of what you had done in the past with those recitals, and money that was put into that organ fund to help take care of the instrument. And so no money was borrowed, no money was taken out of the general operating fund, no money was taken out of the music ministry. That money this summer came from the organ fund that you started working to maintain, to have money put aside for rainy days, for things that came along that needed to be upgraded. And that money is still there. There's still money there. I don't know how much is in that fund at this point, but
Did Shades Mountain Baptist do a renovation in the last year?
I don't know if they did or not.
I've heard a complaint by a member that
On their organ or on
disappointed.
what they did? I don't not know. Do you know what kind of instrument they have? Okay. I do not know either. I do not know. No, I don't. But we are fortunate to have a pipe organ. So fortunate. And we are fortunate to have a wonderful choir. I get the pleasure of standing before them on Wednesday nights and on Sunday mornings as we lead in worship. And many of you are choir members or spouses of choir members that are here today, and so you know the amount of work that goes into preparation for Sunday morning. It's not something that comes along by chance. It's done by preparing, and rarely do I throw something at them on a Wednesday night and have them ready to sing on Sunday morning. However, Last Wednesday, I did that. This past Sunday, the anthem that they sang, they had never seen before, and it worked so well with what Kevin was, with the start of our capital campaign, that I told Kevin, I said, I really want to try to teach this anthem to them. And so they knuckled down and were here a couple hours on Wednesday night, and they learned it, and I was so proud of them. They did a magnificent job Sunday in their presentation of that anthem. But most of the time, we are working out several weeks, working on Sunday. And I very much try to, with music is such a part of worship. It is an enhancement. Different people see it differently. The way I view it, and Kevin, we agree on that, is that everything that we do leading up to the message is trying to point us to that scripture, point us to what he is doing, what he feels called to speak on that Sunday. And so everything that we do, we try to do so it's not just random. It's not just, oh, let's just sing this song this Sunday. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to find the right hymn, trying to find the right anthem that we sing each and every week. It's not something that we just open the hymnal up and say, oh, let's just do this, or I like this song. There are Sundays I sing things that I don't necessarily like, but it's not about what I like. It's about what works and what enhances worship. And so the choir is very devoted in their ministry to this church, and we are very fortunate to have them. And I don't view what they do, and I don't think they do either, but I never view what they do as a performance, ever, because it's not a performance. What they do on Sunday morning is not performing. What they do on Sunday morning is leading in worship and participating and being worship leaders. Each and every one of them is a worship leader, okay? It is not about me. It's not about them. It is about pointing people to the Word and to Christ. And so, it is very much appreciated, and it is very much appreciated. I will say that. And I think that's something that's changed over the course of time. I'm 65 years old. When I was a kid, if somebody did that, they would have drugged them out the church, and it was no. And different congregations respond differently. Just because they don't get applauded doesn't mean that I think that it did not speak to someone. I don't think that at all. And I'll be honest with you, there are times in the service that you may want to applaud, but it wouldn't be appropriate. It breaks the flow of worship, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So I think you sort of, if it's something that is just spontaneous, that someone's been touched by, I don't have a problem with that at all. I don't have a problem with somebody saying amen. I really don't. I think that's it does reassure them, but it's not something that they look for. They don't come back and think, well, they didn't like that because they didn't clap.
That puts it over somewhat in the performance, though.
And it does. And it can cause that to happen. And so we have to be careful as leaders of worship that we don't allow ourselves to get in that mindset of, quote, performing. Because it can happen. We're human. We are human. And it can happen. But I try not to do that. It's not about me or about them. It's about doing our best. Now, do I insist that they do their best? Yes. Do... But no, you don't. They do. But it is, it is an honor to be able to do what I can do. I mean, it truly is, and I consider it an honor. And but I do believe, I am a firm believer that God deserves our best, and therefore it does take rehearsal time. It does take fixing things with them and everything we do to make it. And it's not about so that it will be a good performance. It's about giving our best to Him. And so we cannot do that if we don't rehearse, if we don't prepare, if we don't do what we're supposed to do and take care of our business, then we're not giving our best. when he knows that we can. So it's to me, it's about us striving to be the best we can be. And that is to honor him and to hopefully, lead someone and move someone. Any other questions? John?
I have a question about the blower. When you turn the organ on, the blower comes on. Is that electrically?
It is electric. And some instruments, it's designed that you cannot even hear the air. In fact, Tuscaloosa is one of those instruments. You're familiar with that church, Kay, because you were in Tuscaloosa. But that instrument, you turn on and you do not hear anything. I can hear the air right now from this instrument. And whenever I turn it on, it's obvious that you hear it kick on, and you'll hear the air come up and fill the box. Okay? And but it's not something that's really audible to you unless unless you're listening for it. But it fills those boxes. So those boxes are kept filled with air.
Okay, so it generates all at one time.
It does. It does. And it continues to feed those boxes. Bill? No, there's only one blower, and so it feeds both. It feeds all 5 divisions of the instrument. I came. What was I doing? It was about. What was it? It'd been a year and a half ago. I came in to do something. And, I know, it was on a Sunday morning. Jay came in to play, and we could not, it wouldn't play. The blower would not work. So I frantically called Randall Monday morning, and he said, go down, I think I know what's wrong, go down to the room. I go down to the room. Oh, he said, you shot a fuse. Well, I opened the fuse box to the blower. No fuse was shot. I said, Randall, the fuses are not blown. And he said, oh, I hope the blower's not gone out, because that's several $1,000s, and I'm like, oh, no. So anyway, a wire had actually come loose connecting the blower to the box, and it just wasn't screwed in over time. I don't know if it had jarred loose, but he walked me, and I don't do this, so he walked me through, and I got it hooked back up, and we've had no issues since. So, but it does feed the antiphonal as well as the other 4 divisions. Yeah, I'll show you. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Well, like I said, if you want to get up and move and come and look at the instrument, I'm completely fine with that. You might want to see what happens and see the pistons. But the instrument itself, like I said, is... There's also a crescendo pedal on the organ, and what that means is it will pull... I have nothing pulled on the organ, and so nothing's coming out. But if I use the crescendo pedal, it starts adding organ slowly. So that's a device that, yeah, come so you can see. That is a device that is used, that all pipe organs have. Jay uses it a lot. When I played, I didn't use it a whole lot, but he does use it a lot. But you'll see, and it will, nothing. And we got a pipe that's, so you can add to it. These are the pistons I was telling you about. We have 8 generals. And then these are specific to the keyboard. So you've got lots of choices. You can add to the instrument. Here is a string on the swell. That's one of the strings. If I add to that, the pedal, another string, and there's the 32-foot stop. That's a soft 16-foot on the pedal. So you've got the pedal division is here. This is the swell, which is this keyboard. The great is the middle keyboard, and then the choir and antiphonal. This is the choir, this is the antiphonal. So the antiphonal comes from the rear. You have to couple the antiphonal organ to the choir keyboard to make it work.
And does Jay use the antiphonal?
He does. He does.
Okay, so it should sound from the back?
Now you can hear this vox.
Okay, well,
You can hear it. It's from there now.
yeah.
So it comes from there. There is a trumpet back there, which is nice. Which is very nice to have, especially for weddings, when you can bring the bride in and you can use the trumpet from the rear of the church, which is very, very, very nice.
Are those things?
These are the toad studs.
Okay.
Now notice this works for the pedal toad stud, and Jay doesn't have his set, but now that one is, and which gets you big organ. All the way up. So and then those are, you can, as you're playing, you can depress those. And I told you, and it has that full organ toad stud, which is here, that you can use, which gives you everything, or you can use the piston. And it is loud. That's everything the organ's got.
Those magical bells I hear
And
at the end of a song.
okay, you're talking about the Zimbelstern, which a lot of organs don't have.
Yes.
And what happens? Sometimes an organ they'll be located on the instrument, and it's like this. It's like this tall, and it's these little chimes that twirl, and the twirling causes that sound. So that's what you're hearing. In fact, Jay used those Sunday on the first hymn. He used those Sunday on Holy, Holy, Holy. So that is another device. We do have chimes on the organ. They're not good. He doesn't use them very much. They're not
Is that
good.
what you can hear outside the church?
No, that is a completely different. That is the Caroline that you're hearing outside the church. And it's recorded. It's coming from I think from the, isn't it in the bell tower? Right. So that is a device that,
It's on a timer.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And the sound comes, where is
It comes from there.
outside the church?
Here's the chimes.
So that's not a live person?
No, it is not. Our chimes,
Every time, anyway.
they're not great. We don't have a lot of them. And those are tubular chimes that are long, that hang there, and they are activated from here. But they're located in the swell box. An example, let me play a little Bach for you.
Oh, yes.
This is what I was telling you about the solid state. This is the thing that's so, we can get up to 100, I think. Let me see, where does it go to 60? Up, down. Yeah, this one will go to 32. So we have the possibility of using 32 different settings to use 8 pistons. So 32 times 8, you got that many different possibilities, which is unreal. If an organ doesn't have that, you're stuck with 8 general pistons, and that's it. But this one, with this solid state, this was put in by Randall, completely changes that. Let me find, there's one.
You never graduate from being an organist. You're always a learner.
That's exactly right. Always, always. I think this is what I had preset this. Let me see if I've got what I'm wanting. I think so. So now here is the expression pedals. This one takes care of the antiphonal, which opens and closes shutters. This one is for the choir, so those shutters will close for that, all right? And this is weird, and I still haven't. It's very odd to me. The swell, I'm always used to my swell expression being the first pedal that I deal with as far as expression, and this one's right the opposite. It goes from the bottom to the top rather than the top to the bottom. So my mind has to work around that. But the swell here is closed. And I'm gonna start to open it. And so you hear how much louder it gets by opening those shades. So as an organist, if you want to play softly, you have to close those boxes and you have to move off of the great keyboard to either the swell or the choir keyboard to make that happen. But I'm going to open them for this and then I will close them. This is a fugue. The feet are going to take the melody in a minute. That's but
Okay, you just played it. That's the lady that played it first.
okay. That's good.
When we go to Phantom of the Opera
Yes.
on Sunday, October the 30th, they're going to be playing the organ.
Oh, really? Oh, I saw that. That's cool. This is an example. Now, here's everything the organ's got. Okay. This is a toccata, and this is full organ. This is all she'll go. No, you cannot. You cannot. You cannot. So that's, and like there's the fun part about being an organist is you have so many choices to make. I mean, you have so many choices to make, and it's like you're a orchestrator, and you truly are, because you get to, I mean, this organ has a wonderful oboe on it. Let me see, I had said something. There it is. So there's your strings. So you got solo stops, you've got a trumpet, an 8-foot trumpet, and you end up with the clarion. And you can couple with those. But you've just got so many choices to make. But it's fun to do. It's fun to do.
You hit the wrong pedal.
Well, it sounds bad. And yes, it does. Yes, it shows. For example, well, I'll show you how it shows. Now, Kay, did you mess around or not?
I mess around, but piano is my instrument.
Yeah, I understand.
Mine.
If I were to go, you hear that? Yeah, it does. It does. And that was bad. The weird thing about this, like I said, this pedal board, the pedals are they're just too close. And you do have special shoes you do wear. I mean, it's not just everyday shoes. You do. You don't wear them for anything but this. You know, if you ever see anybody play barefooted, they don't know what they're doing. You cannot play barefooted. You cannot do it.
Eventually, do you want to get those spaced out, or is that
Eventually, we need a new pedal board.
Okay.
But the problem with the pedal board is, with Randall, is trying to build a pedal board for this console. I don't know. We're looking at what it would be if we were to have a new console, which would make it much smaller, and everything would be contained within it. So, and plus the keys, you can see we've got a lot of wear and tear here on some things that are starting to show, and sometimes the keys are not exactly level. You can see here how they're sort of this way. And that's just with the age of the instrument. But that doesn't mean the instrument's bad. It just means that this can be fixed. You know, you just basically, hopefully the day will come when we'll have a new console. And that will.
We said there's more room in the organ than it would need.
Yeah, there is. That's why in the console, the console is way too large. It doesn't need to be this large because it's all wasted space because of this. When we went to the solid state and had to remove all that stuff that was in there that was mechanically had to work, it's not needed. And plus the fact that I was showing them, some of the keys are, I mean, there's a lot of wear and tear, and the springs on the pedals are and like I said, the spacing of the pedal board is not great at all. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Thank you for being here. I didn't mean to keep y'all this long. Oh, okay. You want the highest? You want the highest?
The smallest pipe.
Right there it is.
That's the smallest pipe. Okay.
Wow.
What's the,
Not the loudest, the smallest,
what's
the shortest.
largest pipe?
The largest pipe will be the 32-foot stop in the pedal. You feel, yeah, exactly. And it just sort of is designed to do that.
And that's when the babies wake up.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Randall Dyer, he is the organ builder in Tennessee, Jeffersontown, Tennessee. And Randall has sort of stepped back, but his company is in Tennessee. Yeah, he is a Randall Dyer. I do.
He's not local.
No, he's not local. There's not a local organ builder. There is a Mark, is it Mark Hayes? does do some tuning, but Mark won't touch anything electronically with an instrument. And so Randall, we use him to come into.
What do you know about the organ at Shades Crest Baptist?
I don't know anything about that instrument.
Well, my daughter sings there
Uh-huh.
because of the director.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But anyway, I just,
I don't know. I'll sort of ask around and see what kind of instrument they have.